Okay.
Okay, we're sitting down with Roberto Clack, the Associate Director of Warehouse Workers for Social Justice, a worker career center organizing for stable, family supporting jobs in Chicagoland's warehouses. Good morning to you, Roberto.
Thanks for having us. We're glad to be here.
Roberto, tell us a little something about WWJ. What is it exactly?
So we came out of the Republic Windows and Doors fight and occupation back in 2008 during the Great Recession. So that was a shop organized by the United Electrical Workers, and the company was going out of business and they were going to liquidate it for its assets, and workers decided to sit down and make sure that they got some compensation, some severances, so their vacation pay that they had earned. And they were successful in a lot of regards, not completely, but they'd won more by doing that than if they hadn't. But the backdrop of that story is that it was, the last of several manufacturers that the UE had organized, and that went out of business or went to another part of the world.
They fled to Iowa, didn't they?
I don't know. They didn't fly that one. I think just closed, but other companies.
But as I remember, because I went down the night that story broke, and where the workers literally occupied the building. I know my wife and I stopped at the nearby Dunkin' Donuts and bought some crates of coffee to bring over. But that was a shocking story that really went nationwide about occupying a building that was a factory building that was about to close.
Yeah, no, and it was important, and I think it's that's an important lesson, especially in this day and age where we're going to see a recession that makes that one look small, unfortunately. But the UE wanted to figure out, where's a place you could organize where if they didn't like what you're doing or if you got to organize, they couldn't just move. So Warehouse Workers for Justice was started in Will County, around the largest inland port in the country in Joliet and Elwood. And there's over 300 warehouses in that area, and really a who's who of Fortune 500 companies that have set up shop there. So in Will County, 3.5% of the nation's GDP moves in and out of that area. And really the latest part of that story is really Amazon. So there's 6 Amazon warehouses in Will County. 3 more have been announced within the last several months, despite the stuff with the recession and stuff like that. So we just see this huge shift from brick and mortar, the retail apocalypse, into e-commerce. So Amazon's a big part of this story. Not only the biggest warehouse employer, but they're just the biggest employer in general in Will County. So
now we kind of ran Amazon out of Chicago when they were trying to get that what's it called, their big warehouse over here. And we opposed.
But they were shopping around like 20 cities, right?
The HQ2, yeah.
HQ2, yes.
Yeah.
And but now they're back again in Pullman, I think, right?
Yeah, so they're in Pullman, and they've announced a lot of these new warehouses. Pullman's one of them. There's one in Maywood on the old race course track. And we just expect this, there's 3, one in Shanahan, Illinois, one in Matson, one in Bolingbrook. And some of these are huge facilities. And we only expect this trend to grow as, as the retail apocalypse deepens. And they want to be closer to consumer markets. So one thing that brick and mortar has over e-commerce is this instant gratification. You walk into a store, you buy something, you feel good, and they want to be able to replicate that. But in order to do that, they need to get their packages out to people as quickly as possible.
So are they totally reliant on warehouse workers, or is there a chance that they can automate their warehouses and do away with practically all the workers anyway.
So the automation's an interesting interesting question. I think we can look at this in several ways. I think the long-term prospects are it could lead to job loss, but we were a part of getting these OSHA 300 logs that track the injuries. You may have seen the Will Evans report on injuries in Amazon facilities. And the Moni facility in Illinois, they had an injury rate of 11 out of 100 workers. So that's well above twice the industry average. And many of those, 9 out of 100, led to a loss of time at work. And the average, I believe the average length of work miss was, around 6 or 7 weeks. And you compare that to one of the Joliet warehouses that's not automated, it was 7 out of 100 injuries, which is still not great. But one of the things we believe is happening with automation is it's speeding up the work. So you have these robots that are picking packages and putting it on the line, and workers have to try to keep up with machines in order to, fulfill this work. So we feel that part of what's happening is that it's making work more dangerous and making people have to work harder. And even with the, the algorithms and things like that and making rate, that kind of stuff didn't really exist in the same way as it does now on Amazon. And we would argue that, the algorithms and things like that are part of the automation process, that some of it augments the work that's happening in warehouses.
So what are your demands? What are you proposing? What is WWJ proposing?
So during the COVID crisis right now, I think there's several important things is, that there, some of the work that is happening in the warehouses, and this really underscores just how important warehouse workers have always been to the economy, where other parts of the economy are really decimated, are really shrunk. Warehouse workers have actually grown, especially in places like Amazon and Walmart and other retailers that are keeping our society going in a lot of ways. So, we believe that people should be working in safe working conditions if it is necessary for them to be working. So some of the instances, places just need to be closed and people need to get benefits and unemployment to ride this out. But for the places that are essential workplaces, people need hazard pay, people need protective equipment, and people really need a say in their job. There should be workers' safety committees in every one of these warehouses, making sure that it's the workers who are saying, having a say on whether a workplace is safe or not.
So Roberto, the warehouse workers there now are not in a union.
Predominantly, warehouse work is not unionized, especially in some of these
Amazon workers are not, and the people working in these places out west are not in the western.
Yeah, so there's a handful of groups that are organizing Amazon warehouse workers across the country. They're mostly worker centers and these non-traditional labor organizations that are doing so. So that hasn't happened yet. I think
why not? Why not?
Why is that?
Well, I think there's several reasons. I think a lot, and it's Amazon's not unique in this, but a lot of these big retail giants are vehemently anti-union, so they work very aggressively to thwart any efforts within their warehouses. And I think that's one part of it. And there's it's not just protecting their bottom line, why they're so anti-union or not wanting to have workers have a say. It's that these warehouses, especially in places like Chicagoland, they if workers did get organized, they'd have a lot of say over some of the richest corporations in the world, and they want to really avoid that. There's a redistribution center in Joliet, one of the warehouses there. So what that means is that warehouse supplies all the other warehouses, or many of the warehouses in the Midwest. So it's essentially a choke point. And, Walmart has one of these in our area. So workers, particularly in that warehouse, along with other redistribution centers around the country, all got organized at the same time. They would have a lot of power. The other thing is that a lot of these places are just massive. So traditional unions, are hesitant to pour in the resources that would be needed to organize a lot of these places, and know that they would receive a lot of resistance from the employer. And then, there's a lot of redundancies in the Amazon network. So say you didn't get something in one of these redistribution centers and you got some at a delivery center, there's 2 or 3 around the city. You organize DCH1 in Chicago. Well, if you got that organized and got people to walk off, they might just shift some of the goods to another distribution center and go with that workforce instead. So there's several factors that make it difficult. But that doesn't mean that workers still can't get together and do things and, change the
It
course.
seems like this would be fresh meat for the Teamsters. Aren't the Teamsters the main warehouse organizers?
Yeah, I mean, I would think, yeah, and we've talked to, Teamsters definitely have a stake in this, with representing UPS, and Amazon's deliveries just growing and growing and growing, and there is a sense that Amazon will, take more and more of that market, or even displace people like UPS.
In the last couple of months, though, in the areas where you've been working, workers have taken action on their own. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's been more worker action in a lot of ways than we've seen lately. So there's the Amazonians United, who we work with at Chicago Delivery Center DCH1, have organized walk-offs and petitions to the bosses. They help to get paid time off for workers. So there's been initiatives like that. We're seeing workers walk off their job and participate in wildcats and things like that. Both locally and around the country. So in a lot of ways, people are taking a lot of action. But there's also a pervading fear in taking on the bosses. That's intensified. COVID is moving people into action in a lot of ways, but the economic downturn also makes people hesitant to take that, because if you do lose your job, there's many less of them right now. So that does make some people hesitate. But I'd say that there's a lot of workplace action. We took an action out in DeKalb, Illinois, a couple weeks ago, and had a workplace action on a Cushioneer warehouse where they're trying to get workers to take pay cuts as part of, they wanted the worker to take the pay cuts, to deal with the economic downturn. And so there's going to be a lot of things that we see, both in, health and safety, but also in terms of economic rights and, fighting around those issues as well.
I read that in France, Amazon was forced to come to an agreement with French workers and the unions, where compared to, and I'm comparing that to here, where they seem to have stifled organizing efforts. What are you familiar with that, or why was that a different situation?
Yeah,
over there?
I haven't. I heard about the France settlement, but I haven't actually read up on it. And there has been some retaliation against workers here. I feel that there have been improvements when workers organize, that things do tend to be safer, and the hazard pay has been extended.
Well, they fired two workers here in Chicago, right?
They fired a delivery driver. I'm pretty sure it may be two.
In April, they fired two warehouse workers, I think.
Yeah, and they fired Chris Smalls in New York, who led a lot of the Staten Island organizing. And they actually fired a couple of tech workers
And even one of the executives, I think, maybe the vice president of Amazon, resigned
Yeah, and
in
he was mad.
protest.
Yeah, he was mad because what message does that say? Say if you have legitimate fears over health and safety and you speak out against it, you'll be fired. And Chris Smalls, so that came out when they had a few cases, two or three, and he spoke out and eventually got fired. And now that warehouse is well over 40 or 50 positive cases. So this is. So really, retaliating against workers when they're trying to do the right thing and speak out saying that things aren't safe, really puts the rest of the workforce at risk. And, we would argue also public health, because where are these packages going? They're going to our homes right now. So if workers are speaking out on safety, they shouldn't be retaliated against.
It seems to me the difference between here and France is that the government in France put tremendous pressures on Amazon, and there's also laws on the books there that protects union workers. Where here, it seems like, for example, in Chicago, you got politicians like the alderman out there, Beto, who wants to offer Amazon big, whatever tax breaks to come in, and works under the assumption that while workers may be expendable, we need to have these companies here with tax incentives and low pay to keep them here for jobs and for the economy.
Yeah, and we're really against continuing these tax breaks for warehouse jobs that have questionable job quality at best. Amazon did the $15 an hour and provide healthcare and things like that, but really in our experience it's been a revolving door. They're not really stable jobs.
Yeah, they turn over the workforce like every 6 months.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and there's a reason for that. It's because of this surveillance and the pace of it, and people get burned out by it.
The thing that Michael raised about public officials in the Chicago area and Illinois. Do you find that that people like the governor and the mayor the mayor of Chicago at least, have been more allies or problems when it comes to Amazon and the workers?
Well, look, I mean, it wasn't a secret, but county board president Preckwinkle and Governor Pritzker, once the HQ2 fell through in Queens, that they were angling for the headquarters to come here in Chicago, possibly as part of Lincoln Yards or the 78. That was the rumor, at least. So, a lot of our public officials want more Amazon and want their corporate headquarters and welcome their warehouses into the community. And sometimes the Amazon warehouses pay more than the other warehouses, and they look at that as a good thing. But I think that speaks to more of how big a problem there is in the warehouse workforce and how low the bar is, more than Amazon's doing a great job. So that there's a lot.
When Alderman Beal rolled out the red carpet for Amazon over there in Pullman, Mayor Lightfoot said, "Wait, hold on, not so fast." She wanted to, create some conditions, tougher conditions, I assume, but I don't know what they were. Do you have any idea, like what that, under what conditions they're going to be allowed to function here?
I don't know. I don't know specifically what she was after there, but I think that's the right impulse, is that we know that they're expanding their market right now, and that they want to be closer to consumer markets, especially in that I think that local public officials and community organizations and labor unions need to really hold their feet over the fire and, leverage better deals from corporations like Amazon, and if they're going to be anti-union and do things that are bad for the community, then maybe they don't need to be here.
One last question, and then we're gonna let you go. But do you have a sense that Amazon is in some ways taking advantage of the current situation with COVID, and that might be different if it was under normal conditions?
In a lot of ways, I think they understand that, there's a lot of people out of work, and, they're going to really appeal to people right now, and that they are going to, be able to provide this service that, other people aren't capable of doing by being able to deliver so many packages to people's homes, and they've gotten a ton of bad press, and it seems that over some of these, retaliations of workers and things like that. And it really seems like they don't care right now in a lot of ways, that, Jeff Bezos is on his way to becoming the world's first trillionaire, and they're getting what they want out of this situation. So I would, in a lot of ways, I would say that, yes, that is true.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We're going to, it was great having you on, and we're gonna just for your knowledge, this will be on our show live on Friday.
Okay, great.
On Lumpin Radio.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you.